Welcome to yet another geek show where they don't think it be like it is, but it do. I'm your host, Alex Ecker.
I'm your host, Dalton Munnell.
And I'm your host, Josh Keir.
How are you guys doing today?
Good enough? Good enough? You know what? No, I'm doing great. You know why?
Why?
I know we've been avoiding like topical stuff and talking about trailers and whatnot, but oh my God, this second Detective Pikachu trailer. I am in a great mood.
I didn't get to see it, but I've already been excited for this movie.
I'm still on the Danny DeVito train. Like, Ryan Reynolds will be fine, but DeVito would have made the perfect Detective Pikachu.
He's almost the actual height of a Pikachu, so that makes sense.
Oh, that's right. They wouldn't have had to motion capture or anything.
Yeah, they could have just put some ears on him.
Yeah.
Oh, well, in that case, fuck this movie. I'm not sold anymore.
Right?
I was thrilled until like 10 seconds ago when I was reminded that Danny DeVito is short.
Well, welcome to yet another geek show where we say Danny DeVito is short.
Man. Anyway, that's all I had to say about that. I assume you guys have seen the first trailer. The second trailer makes it look even better. And unlike the Sonic the Hedgehog movie, I am unironically enthused.
I was solidly in the this could either be really good or god awful camp after the first trailer. I haven't seen the second one, but since I don't think Detective Pikachu is going to be the kind of movie where I'm super invested in the story, I might break my personal rule and go track down this other trailer after the show.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it ruins the movie in any way. I mean, well, no, you know what? There is one thing in the second trailer that you're going to wish you didn't see. So, yeah, take that in mind. There's definitely just one thing in there that I'm like, man, why'd they show me that?
It's Ryan Reynolds trash talking Danny DeVito.
Oh, that would make it even better. Why don't they just make both movies?
Right?
Yeah.
Huh. When is it released? Do you remember offhand, guys? 'Cause I don't.
I want to say April some. Yeah. Anyway, on to more current stuff and not future stuff. Josh, I hear you've binge watched The Umbrella Academy.
Yep. No, we talked about this a little bit the other day, but I finished season 1 yesterday. I know you were watching it too. Did you finish it as well?
I did. I'm done with it.
Okay. So, obviously I didn't read the graphic novels and you did. So, I'll be interested to hear what you thought about it, but so overall I thought that the story was definitely a little bit flawed, but I loved the show. I had a ton of fun watching it. It was not perfect, but it was really entertaining.
Yeah, no, I'll give it about the same. It's not going to be show of the year or anything, but it's a highly recommend. I've watched plenty of shows on this podcast where I said, I like it, but I don't really recommend it. No, this I strongly recommend, and I think it's a substantial improvement over the comics.
You think it's comic?
I really do. And
so do they make any like sweeping differences from the graphic novels, or
it's similar enough that I was able to predict 80-90% of it, but it's still different enough to justify reading the comic anyway.
Even
some
though
of
you
it's
think the show
just
is better.
Yeah, I mean, if you were only going to do one or the other, but the tone of them is so different. The comic is not so, it's not so, I don't know if serious is the right word, but maybe real. It's a lot more fantasy in the comic.
Okay.
Just the visuals are a lot more like, superhero. Like, this doesn't look like a superhero show. And in that sense, they toned down certain plot points and certain characters to adapt to that tone, but it's all still recognizable from the comic. And actually, it ended differently enough. It changed just enough that, frankly, I don't think season 2 is going to pull much of anything out of the comics. I think season 2 is going to be generally pretty surprising for people that were already familiar. It's going to feel like going in with a blank slate.
Yeah, it's very hard to talk about season 2 without obviously giving away the end of season 1. But I just wonder how they're going to do it. I will say it. That's all I'll say about it.
Okay.
Yeah,
I might have to watch this, guys.
Yeah, that season ended pretty much right where volume 1 of the comics ends, but the ending itself, the final moments, is pretty seriously different. Anyway, as for why I think it's better than the comic, I said after I read the second volume that I realized the issue was that characters weren't introduced and established well enough. Just the pacing didn't really pull off introducing this many characters to me. So I said that I enjoyed the second volume a little more just because I've had more time with the characters at this point. But while watching the show, I said to my wife halfway through the first episode, oh, I already know these characters better now. Just the show, I don't know if it's through writing prowess or just through, the medium, how the medium works, giving you more time with these people. But the show just did a way better job with the characters.
I mean, the most of the characters were the high point of the show for me. I think the kid they have playing number 5 should win every award that there is for actually being a child, playing an old man trapped in a child's body and coming across like it. I thought every scene he was in, I thought that he stole the show. And when you're on screen with Klaus half the time, that's saying something.
That kid sold it so well, I honestly didn't even think about it.
Right? I had to think about it during some of the episodes. Like, that is an actual child playing an old man playing a child.
It's like that bit in Thor Ragnarok where Anthony Hopkins has to do an impression of Tom Hiddleston doing an impression of Odin.
You get the Robert Downey Jr. in Tropic Thunder. I'm the guy playing the dude disguised as the other dude.
Yeah. And you can, it's easy to forget in that moment in Thor Ragnarok that you're looking at Anthony Hopkins and not Tom Hiddleston, just because that moment is done so well. This show is basically, doing that through the length of the whole show. And like you said, that kid has to hold his own against whoever this actor is playing Klaus. That guy's just incredible. He's my favorite thing about the show. He was already my favorite thing about the comics, but he's far more developed here. I think he gets a lot more time. It's just more interesting here.
When they introduced Klaus's character in the first episode, I thought to myself, I could see him grating on me very easily. And I was really surprised with, I guess, how the character developed and how, I wish I had looked up this actor's name before the show, how the actor playing Klaus, really sold the character to me and made him almost my favorite. I think 5 has him edged out just a little bit, but Klaus is definitely number 2 for me.
Yeah. I don't know. Number 5... for me, I mean, he's great, but he takes longer to grow on me, if only because until you spend more time with the character, he's introduced as a bit of a trope. The trope of just the genius that's better than everybody else. And it's a thing that, like, you've seen enough times, but, there's a twist to it this time, and you get more out of the character as you spend more time with him.
What I liked about this show in general is that pretty much all of the characters seem to be subversions of superhero genre tropes. They're all presented as something and then kind of revealed to be a lot different. Like, I don't know, like Luther, for instance, is portrayed as, he comes across as your Blandy Captain America, like, heroic leader stereotype. And, over the course of the show, you find that there's, maybe I shouldn't say too much. Maybe if we're going to spotlight this, I should not spoil too much. But obviously, a lot of characters, they're all broken characters.
Okay.
Yeah, Alex, this is a highly recommend, and if you watch it soon, then sure, absolutely, we'll spotlight it. In general, I don't want to promise spotlights to the viewers that are based on TV shows, because that's a much bigger time investment for us than the retro video games and movies we've been doing. But Alex, if you happen to get to it, we'll absolutely do that.
I watched the whole season in 2 days, and I'm not normally one for binge watching. It was very entertaining. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, okay, absolutely.
Yeah, I'll have to figure out, because Josh, I wanted to tell you, I finally got Kingdom Hearts 3.
Oh, no. It sounds like you have thoughts.
I've been waiting for this game for 10 years. The way they opened it, I couldn't have imagined anything better. Sure, sometimes it felt a little clunky. I haven't beaten the game, mind you. I'm maybe like about 10 to 15 hours in, somewhere in that range. And I don't know about you, but this constant, here, fight some shit, move around, cutscene, 10-minute cutscene, fight some shit, move around, another 10-minute cutscene. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, that loop gets very repetitive, and when the cutscenes, especially in some worlds, are basically just verbatim recreations of the source material Disney movies. Like, I have not gotten very far in Kingdom Hearts 3. I'm in the middle of the Tangled world right now.
Okay. I'm actually farther than you.
Okay. Well, that whole world has kind of put me off, because it's literally just like run for 5 minutes, fight some Heartless, and then watch a cutscene from Tangled, but also Goofy is in the background.
Yeah, no, you're completely right.
I'm sold.
I don't know if did you go to the other world there with Toy Story?
Yeah, I liked that one a lot more. That was actually my favorite world so far in the game.
Yeah. I don't know, man. There was something about it where it was almost like a childhood dream kind of come true.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Not realizing, because like I'm gonna travel back a little bit here. When I was around the ages of like 4 and 6, there was a Toy Story book that my mom would read me when I was a kid, and I don't know, I just really liked Toy Story. And then like in Toy Story 3 and the moment where I almost started crying, and if either of you tell me that you didn't almost start crying, I'm gonna call bullshit.
Oh no, I can't even lie about it.
Oh man, there's just something.
Toy
really
Story 3
fantastic.
might be my first time crying in a movie theater.
Really?
Absolutely.
Wow, I didn't realize that. I'm so glad that we all had such a strong emotional response to that.
Yeah, well, and what was fun was, wow, we're going to go on a tangent here, because it's not like any of us just watched Toy Story 3.
Sure, that's fine.
My experience seeing that in the theater was, I was in a group of maybe 5 or 6 people, all my age, and, the experience was like being about the same age as Andy for all 3 movie releases. And we're all fresh out of high school on our way to college as we walk into this movie. And what was funny was that, like, at the point where everyone starts crying, no one's talking about it. Everyone's wearing their 3D glasses and hiding behind them. And then on the way out the door, we're like, so you guys cried, right? Like, we're good? Okay.
I wasn't the only one, right?
Yeah.
Toy Story 3 is, I'm going to call that like at least a top 10 favorite movie of all time.
I'll tell you what, there was something about in Kingdom Hearts 3 and being in Andy's room and getting to explore a lot of the things, like the bucket of soldiers that was just sitting on the bookshelf. Mm-hmm. I took a good close look at the character model, and I don't know if you noticed this, Josh. I can't remember which movie it was that like Woody's arm kind of like nearly got ripped off and they had to stitch it back on.
Wow, I need to brush up on my Toy Story. That wasn't the first movie, was it?
It might have been. I mean, there's only 3. You can, you know what I mean? You can only take your pick from those, but
yeah.
There was that moment where his like stuffing kind of got ripped out from like on his armpit, and they stitched them back together. I just happened to like run past the character model, and you know how they kind of like run into the camera until they disappear?
Right.
I happened to catch on that arm, you could see the stitches. And on the other arm, it wasn't there, because I had to go back and double check that. And I just thought that was like those little details.
Oh, that's some real nice attention to detail there.
Absolutely. I was kind of blown away. I'm like, wow, they really did their research before they did any of this, and they better have, because it only took them 10 years to make it.
Okay, this raises a question for me.
Sure.
With the Kingdom Hearts franchise, I realize that Kingdom Hearts itself is, of course, not really canon to these things it's tying in with.
Right.
Like, you're never going to see a Disney movie and probably not a Final Fantasy game reference the events of Kingdom Hearts. But the versions of these characters that appear in Kingdom Hearts, are they implied to take place after all of the already existing media? Like if you see Toy Story characters, is it assumed that these versions of them are past Toy Story 3, or do they sometimes take place during?
That's a yes and no question.
Well, I guess you said there's a Tangled recreation, so I guess that would be during that movie.
It tends to vary based on the world that you're in. So, like, for instance, in Kingdom Hearts 1, well, because there are some worlds that you revisit multiple times over the course of the games. Like, there's in Kingdom Hearts 1 and Kingdom Hearts 2, you visit Agrabah. And you mostly play through the events of Aladdin the first time in Kingdom Hearts 1. And then you go back in Kingdom Hearts 2, and there's still story going on there. I think it might be from the Aladdin sequels that I haven't watched, and I'm a little bit hazy about what goes on again. But
I think it is the events of Aladdin 2 somewhat. It's loosely based on it, because also in Kingdom Hearts 2 with Agrabah, I'm thinking of the Olympus Coliseum where they brought in Auron from Final Fantasy X.
Yeah.
Okay. I remember there being a giant magic carpet ride thing in Kingdom Hearts 2 that I think was definitely from the movie, like Aladdin 2. To kind of answer your question about Toy Story, Dalton, the Toy Story world in Kingdom Hearts 3, it's never really outright stated, but it's just kind of implied that it takes place, I think, between Toy Stories 1 and 2, because, like, Buzz and Woody are there and they're friends, but, like, Jessie isn't. And actually, a lot of the toys are not for story reasons, but if I would probably put it between 1 and 2 based on just kind of knowing the franchise and knowing kind of what status quo would look like. It's definitely after 1, because I remember a joke that they put in there. There's you go into this giant mega toy store, which is also like a big mall outlet, and there's a vent you have to climb into, and he's like, how are we going to get up there? And then Woody's like, too bad we don't have a rocket, right, Buzz?
Wow. All right. That's a good one.
Well, yeah, there's actually one of the combo attacks when Woody and Buzz are in your party, where you fly around on the rocket for a little bit, which I thought was a fun little touch.
Which, can we touch on how much I love the combat system now? Like, with Dream Drop Distance, they introduced the flow motion style fighting, but it's not even just that. It's no longer your characters and switching one of them out for the character of that world. It's all of your characters and 1 or 2 characters from the current world you're in.
I did like that. I did not play Dream Drop Distance, so I'm pretty much comparing it to Kingdom Hearts 2, which is the most recent one that I fully completed. I played like a third of Birth by Sleep and never really got that into it.
Okay. Yeah, you're going to get a little confused like I was too, cuz they introduce a new thing, because like I don't know if you know the story at all, but it like takes place like on an old Japanese mobile game, is like where the game starts, like the whole story.
I once watched like a timeline video on YouTube that was 40 minutes long, and I have a rough plot point. I have a rough basis for what happened in this stupid, incomprehensible plot.
Well, there's this new thing that came up. If you don't mind me dropping the name of what they're called.
Okay.
They're called the Unversed, and I don't know what game they were in, because I mean, to be fair, in Dream Drop Distance, I only got so far into it because Kingdom Hearts on a 3DS was not great, but it was doable. And this game's mechanic was really uninteresting to me after so long of playing it. But I'm wondering if the Unversed were thrown into that game. They're a lot harder than the Heartless or the Nobodies.
Of course there needed to be a third thing.
Of course, because I mean, you only have, the X-Blade, and then that shattered into, 18 or 20 pieces, where there's the 7 princesses and then the 13 bad guys that made Organization 13, and some dudes touched some other dudes and they got inside those dudes and now they're half that dude, and those dudes split apart and
See, somebody who's not familiar with Kingdom Hearts is going to think that you're making shit up off the top of your head, but you actually just very accurately described the plot of the franchise.
Exactly.
You could tell me pretty much anything and I'd actually believe it.
Oh man, the thing is I'm really not wrong, because some dude has some kids touch some keyblades and fucking they're like, hey, little kid, touch his keyblade, now you're part of me, and then they die or something or other, and then they're like, hey, I have a person that's not me, but they are me. And then it's like, okay, make them two go back together again, and then they make that person, and then my name is Ansem, and I'm going to separate myself into like 27 different people. And
all right, so before this eats up the whole show, let's summarize your thoughts here.
So far, I love the game. I'm not excited about the spot that I'm in, though. Currently, I'm past where Josh is with like Toy Story and Tangled, but I moved on to the next world, and it's a movie that I haven't seen from Disney. And Josh, I think you may not like it either. It's the world of Frozen, because you knew it had to be there.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen the movie. I knew it was coming. There was no way it was ever not coming.
Yeah, I was never going to watch the movie, but now like Kingdom Hearts is kind of forcing me to get like the Cliff Notes version of the game or of the movie.
Alex, it's overrated, but it is a really good movie.
All right, maybe next year.
As annoying as its popularity made it, Disney Animation is pretty consistent about really good movies.
It is a good movie. It's not my favorite, but it's good.
The only thing that I know about this movie, and this may actually crack you guys up, back when I worked at a specific Office franchise, my old boss, who could not even carry a tune in a bucket, was singing the Let It Go song while like completely like doubled over, his ass in the air, and he was dancing, and he's just like, oh, and he's just ripping ass left and right as he's dancing like that and singing the song. And keep in mind, the store's open and we were cram-packed.
Well, you know what? Your version of the movie is a little bit better anyway, so you can stick with that.
Okay, cool.
All right, moving on to semi-related to Disney animated movies. Let's go with not Disney animated movies. I watched the first 2 How to Train Your Dragon movies. I haven't gotten to the third one in the theater yet, but I am absolutely pumped.
I want to see it.
And have you guys seen the first 2?
I have seen the first one, and I've actually been meaning to do what you just did and watch the first 2 in preparation of going to see the third. I've avoided looking at it because I'm going to see it no matter what, but I haven't watched any trailers or looked at anybody's comments on it. But I think I noticed the Rotten Tomatoes score and people were really satisfied with this one too. And that's great, because if I go into this movie and I love it as much as I love the first 2, that's going to qualify it as my second favorite movie trilogy behind Lord of the Rings. Wow. These movies they're just perfect. I love them.
They are really good. They make me laugh. They make me cry. They make me feel the feels. They're so good. Yeah, Josh, watch them back to back before you see the third one. And also, Dalton, when you go to see the third one, let me know. We might have to go to the movie together to check it out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or we can just make it a triple date, guys.
Josh, the second movie is honestly even like an improvement over the first one, as good as that was.
Wow. That's surprising, because I mean, it's been several years since I've watched the first one, but I remember thinking, well, that was just a really damn good movie.
Yeah, the first movie, I saw it in the theaters totally on a whim. I hadn't seen any trailers or advertising or anything. It was just, hey, here's what's playing. Let's watch something. And I was totally blindsided by that first movie. It's one of the best looking animated movies I've seen. And it's one of the more, just for a kid's animated movie, I don't know. It feels mature to me. It feels intelligent, I guess.
It's got dragons.
It's got fucking dragons and Vikings. And you know what? Let me just share an interesting observation I had watching that first movie, since that one we have all watched. So during the first act where Hiccup is determined to be a Viking and he's just not doing it, there was a serious risk from the writing department, just based on this setting, of accidentally doing something that could be offensive to people that care about harmful gender norms and stereotypes. Because most of the time, if you were to see a property about Vikings, you would assume that this is going to come with encouragement that young boys should be badasses and should be aggressive and mean and whatnot. But in this story, Hiccup's father doesn't actually want him to be a Viking, and he never criticizes him for not being capable of being that.
Wow.
He wants that for himself, but the society around him never demands it out of him.
Yeah, now that you mention that is a big risk.
Yeah, so it was pretty fucking woke. They nailed that a decade ago.
Wow. Yeah, I didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
Wow, they really could have fucked that movie up, huh?
It would have been, I mean, I don't know if anyone would have actually gotten offended if they did that, but they would have at least called it out on the trope.
Yeah, I guess you're right. At least it would have called it out on its just classic ideology. But I mean, let's be fair. People are getting mad about Team Rocket, where, what was it, James had inflatable boobs or actual boobs in an episode of Pokemon.
Yeah, well, that's quite a different discussion, but in any case. Jesus Christ. I don't know. Why did you remind me that that's a thing?
I'm here to ruin everything. You realize this, right?
It's not offensive. It's just dumb.
Right?
Anyway, I don't know how to continue anymore. You wrecked me.
You know what? Scrape your knuckles and catch some tails.
Christ. Anyway, How to Train Your Dragon 1 and 2 are, I don't know, they're up there for me, not just as favorite animated movies, but as favorite movies, and I can't wait to see the third, and I hope it solidifies it as being one of my favorite trilogies.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this newer movie too.
That said, Josh, do you have anything else to share?
So I got completely sucked in to Slay the Spire this week.
I've heard of this, but have no idea.
So it is a deck building roguelike card game that just came. It had been in early access for a couple years, I think, and had fully released, I want to say, a few weeks ago or sometime last month. I generally, just as a personal rule, try to stay away from early access games until they've released, because I don't necessarily like supporting that practice so much. But I knew a lot of friends that had played it while it was in early access and had a lot of good things to say about it, so I figured I'd give it a try. And I have become obsessed with it. It is so much fun. The general kind of rundown of the gameplay is that you pick one of three character types, and you're given a starter deck of cards. This is a fully single player experience, And basically a dungeon is procedurally generated for you. At every point you'll have a choice between a couple different options for your next room. It can be something with like an encounter with an enemy, a random event, a campfire where you can rest and or like upgrade one of your cards, or a shop where you can buy cards or remove cards from your deck. And the point of the game is to make your way through this dungeon, while every so often you'll be offered certain things to either add to your deck or enhance what's in your deck already, and you basically want to have a strategy come together through the cards you're offered and certain artifacts that you can get that give you passive bonuses that can then combo with certain things. If you're the kind of person that likes coming up with like big wombo combo moves in games, Slay the Spire has that in droves. There's just like discovering the little synergies between how certain cards interact with each other and how certain cards will interact with the artifact relics you can get. And basically, when you find like a relic that then suddenly makes cards that you wouldn't look at normally in a vacuum suddenly become the best thing that you could possibly have. It's just incredibly rewarding to make a bunch of choices and then watch your strategy like unfold over the course of the run once your deck starts working like a well-oiled machine. I think I played this game for I booted it up to try it, and I think I played it for 5 hours and realized that it was 2 in the morning and I had to work tomorrow. And I don't think I've done that since I was in college.
Oof. Okay. High praise.
That's like every night.
You have simultaneously sold and unsold me.
Yeah. Wow.
And here's why. So first of all, well, no, that wasn't a joke about the 5 hours gone thing. There's just things in there that appeal to me and things that don't. I believe I've said on the show before already that I would be interested in more single player, not competitive card-based games.
Yes.
So cool. Sold on that. I don't care for roguelikes. That's just me. I don't know. I get the appeal, but it's not me. I don't care for procedural generation. I get that some of the appeal is that I guess it forces you to change your strategy every time when you play games like this. So that's cool. Maybe some of it's that it's technically infinite content, but in my head, I just prefer the idea of an actual level designer putting together something that is their best work and saying, here's the challenge, here's what it is. End of story.
This is the hook and this is the blade.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so,
generally
that's just me.
The challenge in Slay the Spire is making the best choices with what's offered to you over you. There are tons and tons and tons of decision points. Like everywhere you look, you're making a choice, and over the course of dozens and dozens of choices, your strategy starts to come together, and you're flying by the seat of your pants the whole time. And that's not unique. That's like the roguelike thing. If you're not the bigged fan of that, I mean, Slay the Spire has that in droves. I will say I'm not a super fan of roguelikes, but I've played a lot of them. I think last year one of the games I played the most was Enter the Gungeon, which was a game I never got good at, but it was really fun. It's kind of funny because Slay the Spire is a card game, right? But it feels to me less dependent on randomness than other roguelikes I've played. And that sounds impossible at first. But there are so many opportunities for you to make skillful choices that it kind of mitigates the ability for bad luck to completely just lock you out of being successful.
Okay.
Okay. Well, that helps me a little bit. I'll go ahead and wish list it right now and think about it. Josh, are you familiar with Hand of Fate?
Hand of Fate. The name rings a bell, but I could not tell you a thing about the game.
Likewise.
Alex, I've actually recommended this to you before, so you'll remember it as I'm talking about it.
Probably.
So you're playing against this character called the Dealer, and what happens is you're playing this card game with him, but at the end of the round, you go into an actual like third-person action combat sequence where your buffs are determined by how the card game went.
Oh, yeah. I remember you telling me about this.
And so technically you can do really poorly in the card game, which is a little bit strategy, a little bit luck. You could end up coming out really poorly and have like debuffs that lower your health and your defense or give special abilities to your enemies and whatnot. And technically, if you're skilled enough, you can overpower that bad luck and win regardless in the combat.
Huh.
Yeah. I recommend the hell out of that.
Is this like relatively recent or?
Probably a handful of years. It actually had a sequel come out a year or two ago, so I'm thinking the first game might be 4 or 5 years.
Well, that's something I think I'm going to have to go back and check out, because especially given my current interests right now, that sounds like something that's right up my alley.
Yeah.
Yeah, and actually I'll have to jump back into it because I think I rage quit on the final boss.
That sounds like
I think I played the rest of it in one very long sitting and then rage quit on the last boss and never came back. Yeah, Steam says I played it for 8 hours, so I think that was one 8-hour sitting. And then I surrendered. Alex, did you have anything else to share?
I wanted to tell you guys, I'm sorry that this may be my last podcast episode for a while, because I might be sitting there in a pool of my own stink trying to beat Kingdom Hearts 3, because this game is still really good, and I just keep thinking about it, and I know I didn't want to take up the whole episode, but come on.
Oh, well, if you're going to surrender everything over it, how long is it really going to take you? Are you going to be a completionist about it 100%?
No. No, I see with me and like the Kingdom Hearts games, like, or even like any RPG, what I tend to do is I tend to run through the story really quickly to beat the game, and then I'll go back and do all the extra stuff.
Sure.
Just so that way, like, I don't want to go through into my first run and try and get everything and then miss like something super vital and then not be able to go back, you know? Which might make or break RPGs for a lot of people, is that kind of strategy. But I don't know. I've always done it. Like, one of my favorite Final Fantasy games is Final Fantasy VIII, and I've played that game tons of times trying to find everything. And I don't know. I had the strategy guide. Well, correction, my dad had the strategy guide for that one, and my dad does that. He'll get literally everything, but he'll read the book and kind of like spoil the surprise of the game. You know what I mean? Whereas I'd rather be wowed by the story and go back and reflect on it, but do shit differently that I didn't do the first time.
I have a bad habit of, I don't care for being a completionist at all, but I have a bad habit of immediately opening a guide when I start an RPG, just so that, like, I'm not going to try to find everything, but I'll look at it just in case I do miss a particular thing that would have been really helpful.
Yeah, that's fair.
I'm not worried that I won't get everything. I'm just worried that I won't get something important. And I say it's a bad habit because, I mean, that's not the way the game's meant to be played. That's not putting yourself in a role. That's simultaneously putting yourself in a role while reading about what you're supposed to be.
See, like, for example, I did this with Horizon Zero Dawn, where there's a specific item you have to collect to get like the best armor in the game. And like, I just stumbled upon it. I wasn't trying to find it or anything or had a guide open. I just happened to come across it during playing the game. And then I needed like a certain item, but you can only find them in like certain locations of the game. And that's the first time I pulled up a guide for that game, because I was like, okay, I just want to know where these things are and, you know, what missions to find them in, so that way I don't miss them, because I know that's going to be super helpful end game.
Yeah, and I mean, if you're starting Final Fantasy VII and you never open up a guide, like, you can miss 2 whole characters
That's a very good point.
Yep, I played through Final Fantasy VII the first time without ever stumbling into the one patch of forest you need to walk into to find Yuffie. So I missed out on that whole side quest.
I have a hard time getting her even after I look up exactly where to find her. There's no way I would have ever found her by accident.
Yeah, that's a good point. You guys are going to hate me because I still haven't played through Final Fantasy VII.
Well, fair enough. Man, these
It's
Final
like
Fantasy games.
$10 on Steam.
It's like $10 on everything.
Yeah, well, Dalton has it, and we have Steam sharing, so I can always do it through there.
You can always wait for nine more years for the first part of the Final Fantasy VII Remake trilogy to come out.
Oh my god.
Wait, is it really supposed to be a trilogy?
Oh yeah.
You're
FF7
fucking kidding
Remake
me.
has been confirmed a trilogy. Of course,
Oh my
it was
God.
announced like 5 years ago, and we still don't know
Yeah.
when part 1's
Wait,
coming out.
are you sure it was that it's a trilogy or just that it's episodic? Because I only saw confirmation that it's episodic, not how many.
Wow.
My quick Googling has an article from 2016 saying that it was going to be a trilogy of 3 game discs with 30 hours of content each.
Yeah. Okay, so that makes sense. I mean, I'm cool with it being episodic because they're claiming that each episode is going to be the length of a pretty decently sized game anyway.
Yeah.
So like fair enough.
But are they going to be selling these all at $60 a piece?
Oh,
Well,
they
yeah,
are.
because they're all going to be a full length game.
Yeah. Do you really think justifying
Is the idea.
$180 though for a game that you can play for like $10 still?
If I can see Cloud wearing a dress in glorious 1080p on a 4K monitor,
I mean, let's be fair. We're
Well-
all going to
well,
buy this
but
game
Alex-
anyways.
But Alex, the original game is itself something like a 40-hour game.
Yeah, no, I see your point. I mean,
They're
regardless-
claiming that this is going to be drastically expanded
Oh,
and that each of them should be something like 40 hours.
I'm not going to
Fair.
lie,
Okay.
given Square Enix's recent track record, I'm not fully convinced in their ability to make an expanded Final Fantasy VII that actually adds value compared to the original, but I'm a cynic.
Well, maybe that's in your best interest.
yeah.
Generally, I have found that it is.
What else did I have to talk about if we were done with Final Fantasy?
Yeah, I think I'm done.
I
We're done with Final
can
Fantasy?
be.
Wait, how did we get on Final Fantasy?
Kingdom Hearts.
Oh, okay.
Wait, no, I don't think it was because of that directly. It was because of RPGs in general.
It was a
Oh,
very
okay.
long chain of events that probably started with Kingdom Hearts.
One could
Okay.
say a chain of memories.
Jesus
out.
Christ. I just wanted to make sure I didn't cut that off in the middle of
Fuck out.
something else.
I struck a nerve with you, Josh.
Chain of Memories is the one Kingdom Hearts spin-off I've actually played through the whole way, and I talk about how much I love card games all the time, and Kingdom Hearts Chain of Memories makes me want to chain myself to a radiator and die.
I was going to say, it makes me want to chain you to a radiator and die. Damn.
All right, thanks for that, Squeenix.
Great lines.
So guys,
So bad. All right, go ahead. Dalton, up to you.
okay, so last week, I opened up Steam and glanced at their little pop-up advertisement page you get every time you log in, and it revealed to me Flower now for sale on Steam.
Oh, by that game company?
Yeah.
Oh, shit.
Which shouldn't have really surprised me because we've known for a little while that Journey is going to the Epic Games Store. But I don't believe Flower was announced at all before it was simply dropped on Steam. Here it is. Here you go. It exists now. You didn't know an hour ago.
Yeah.
I'm going to need a rundown of what Flower is, you guys, because that doesn't mean anything to me.
Oh, go ahead, Dalton. This is all yours.
Okay, first of all, Josh, are you familiar with Journey?
I am, yes.
Okay, so this is the game that company made before Journey. Wow.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm tripping over myself because I was about to call them that company that did so-and-so, but their name is actually that game company. And that kind of broke my brain a little. So they had an agreement with Sony for Sony to fund their first 3 full games. So that was Flow and then Flower and then Journey. And up until now, those were Sony exclusives. Flower, just like Journey, is a very unique and emotional experience with no spoken dialogue and no clear story except for, you know, what you choose to get out of it. So the gameplay of Flower, the idea is that you actually play a gust of wind and you'll be like set in a big open field where there's these unbloomed flowers throughout the field. And as you kind of run your little drift of wind across them, you like grab the pollen and seeds or whatever. I don't know how flowers work from the other flowers and drop them into other ones. And then they bloom and it makes the world bright and colorful as you're doing this very simple mechanic. But it's hard to explain where the actual emotional value comes from. I don't want to just say it's really pretty because it is, but it's just the interaction of the music and the colors on the screen and the little changes to the gameplay that happens as it goes on that you start to pick metaphors up out of. There's themes in there about nature and man and that kind of thing. It's only maybe an hour and a half long. It has one of my favorite scores in all of games, and the score
Austin
has
Wintory.
this. No, it's not. No. Well, Austin Wintory did Journey and Flow. He did not do Flower.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. But Flower I love almost just as much because it has this really interesting mechanic where it's the norm today for the music to be somewhat responsive to what the player is doing. But in Flower, what happens is only the chords, only the backing track is predetermined, and the melodic notes are actually triggered by you making contact with the flowers. And then it's contextually aware of like what notes will sound decent over the chord that happens to be playing right that second. So the score is constantly adapting down to the minute interaction. You're never going to hear the same melody twice, but what you hear is consistently beautiful regardless. And there is a version of that score where the composer did have to like put together definitive, okay, these are the melodies, and that's worth checking out too. Actually, I only have a few original soundtracks saved on my Spotify, and that's been one of them for years. That said, while this is an all-time favorite of mine, as evidenced by the fact that maybe 4 or 5 months ago, I borrowed Alex's PlayStation and bought him this trilogy of games just so I could play them.
Yeah.
And then I bought it again just now, which would be my 3rd time buying the game.
Wow.
As much as I totally love it and it's a favorite and I recommend it, I'm kind of pissed off about this port.
Oh.
On the grounds that the controls are utterly butchered.
Oh, no.
Flower is one of the very few games to make heavy use of the motion tracking of the DualShock 3 and 4.
The 6-axis, correct?
Yeah, you steer that whole game using the 6-axis, and supposedly if you have a DS4, and I do not, the original controls are intact on PC, but their attempt to convert it to a joystick or mouse and keyboard is just god awful. It's like they never play tested a second of trying to play that way, and it feels utterly dreadful, and it was a ridiculously frustrating experience. I would not think in 2019 that you could fuck up movement controls, but man, they really did it. But like I said, supposedly if you have a DualShock 4, then those controls are still intact. I suppose if you have a Steam controller, you could probably make that work too for the motion tracking, but I've lost the dongle to mine, so I couldn't test that out.
So you reminded me, when you bought that, Flower became available on my PS Vita, and I don't recommend playing it on the Vita either. It's definitely one of those games where you don't want the screen to also be the thing that controls your entire game. Like, you have a little, like, 4-inch screen that you have to physically twist and contort in your hand and still be able to keep 100% eye contact onto, and it does not work very well. If you play it on a console.
I can see immediately why that would be a nightmare. Actually, you know what? That leads me to a funny story.
Sure.
Regarding my wife, who does not play video games. She'll occasionally, like once a month, decide to humor me and play a game for a couple hours, and then that's that. She is easily frustrated by video games, and however many years ago, when the PS3 was still my primary console, I made her play Flower, and she rage quit the most relaxing video game of all time during the end credit stage. And at that point, I told her she was not allowed to play Journey. And to this day, she has not played Journey because I don't know how well I would deal with her rage quitting that game.
Oh, man, that's so good.
Yeah, that's all I have to say about that. Let's see, do I have any other notes here to bring up? How about a series of unfortunate events?
What about it?
3rd season.
Oh, you know what's really interesting about that?
No.
I haven't watched anything of it.
Josh?
So I have watched season 1 the whole way through. I missed season 2. I watched probably 2/3 of season 3 over Kyla's shoulder while she was working, but not directly on my own. I've been meaning to go back and watch the final 2 seasons on my own, especially season 3, because when I was younger, I read the books up to the end of what the first 2 seasons covered, so I was at least familiar with the storyline, but I didn't actually know how the franchise ended ever until season 3 came out. And I like watched the end, so I kind of know how it ends now, but I would like to sit down and give it my full attention still.
Yeah, okay. So I actually finished watching it like 2 or 3 weeks ago and just forgot to bring it up because it's a show that while I'm really happy with it and I highly recommend it, it's hard to get excited and hyped about because it is such a faithful adaptation of the source material that you almost don't need it. Like they kind of invalidate each other. You only really need one or the other.
Wow. Okay.
Generally, I would consider that high praise, though.
It is. But it's just a dichotomy where it's like I'd give it a high score and I'd recommend it, but like it took me at least a month to finish watching the last season because it was hard to be hyped for it, and I kept watching other things instead just because as good as it is, it's like, oh, this is exactly the same story I already read. So it's not like walking into a Marvel movie where, you know, only small bits and pieces of it are really pulled out of source material. And, you know, my guess is as good as anyone's as to what's going to go down. Like, it's not like that. You know exactly what's going to happen in these because it is a ridiculously faithful adaptation. But I don't know that I have anything more to say about it than that. I mean,
other than the fact that Neil Patrick Harris was really good as Count Olaf.
Yeah, and now we can forget that Jim Carrey's version ever existed, and this is the definitive version, and there will never be another reason to adapt it again.
That's very true. I cannot see why you would ever want to adapt the series again. And yeah, I've been trying to pretend that Jim Carrey movie never happened since the first time that I saw it. So that's been an exercise in futility, probably 10 years running now.
Yeah, so there you go.
Oh, goodness.
All right, we're at about an hour now. Does anyone else have anything to bring up?
Not really. I think I've said all I need to say for this week.
No, I think I'm good here. I'm sure Alex wants to go play more Kingdom Hearts.
Yeah.
All right, well, in that case, let me hold him up with one more thing.
All right.
Okay, it's Switch time. I'm not actually done with it. I just want to talk about it. Super Mario Odyssey.
Oh,
Josh, you've played this. How much of the post game have you done? Have you completed this or?
So I played through the Dark Side of the Moon. I don't think I finished the Darker Side of the Moon because I went back and tried to clear most of the bonus moons that you unlock in all the base worlds after finishing the game. I know I did not get 100% moon completion. I may have gotten, and I'm trying to remember how many are in the game. I think I got, let me see, how many do you need to get Darker Side? Let me look that up real quick.
I believe...
Isn't it 500?
The question of how many is complicated because you can technically buy, I believe, an infinite number of moons.
You can do that. I have not done that. Okay.
I believe the game considers you complete at 1,000 moons, but I don't know how many of those are purchased and how many actually exist.
I want to say there are a little shy of 900 moons that you can find organically in the game. I think I maybe got 700 or so of them before, just kind of phasing out on it. But I loved every minute I spent playing Odyssey.
Okay, so I'm at about 350 moons right now, and I don't think I'm going to 100% it. That's just not a thing I do, but I'm at least going to try to hit that 500 mark. I don't know what happens at that mark, but the game tells you, you unlock something at 250 and you unlock something at 500. So I'm going to at least try to get that far and probably not complete it. I'm not normally a completionist, but Nintendo making me pay $60 for games again. I better get my money's worth out of it. So that's kind of changing the way I play games now. But furthermore, it's actually just an enjoyable enough game that I don't feel like I'm done with it at this point.
And that's exactly why I was doing it too. Completing the main story, and then the game basically doubles the amount of moons in every level and gives you an excuse to go back through these worlds, which I loved playing through the first time. I don't know. I guess it's not just Nintendo that does this, but they seem to do it with the highest consistency among game developers that I've noticed. So many Nintendo games, I mean Mario games, Zelda games, I could say the same thing about Breath of the Wild. They just have this almost indescribable characteristic of they're just fun. Like moving your character around the game world feels fun. They just somehow managed to distill this sense of enjoyment and inject it into everything that you do in the game. Just running around Odyssey as Mario and seeing how fast you can run, or rolling down a hill, or when you perfect the backflip jump, throw the cap, dive on the cap, bounce off the cap, and then dive back the other way. When you get good at moving your character around, everything just feels so fluid, and just navigating the worlds is enjoyable. And it's in a way that I can't even adequately to explain how.
Yeah. Well, okay. So to continue the trope here of me making it really far into a game without noticing a particular game mechanic.
Oh my God.
Alex, when you saw me play the game for 10 minutes one day, you mentioned seeing in a video that hat throw thing where you throw the hat and then dive at it and bounce off of it and throw it again. Yeah. And I thought you must be misremembering that because I had played the game for at least 15 hours at that point, and I didn't remember being told how to do that. And I was sitting there button mashing and couldn't figure out how to do it. Pulling off that move takes 4 or 5 button presses. It's really hard to stumble upon on accident.
Yeah.
Even after you told me that was a thing, I sat there trying to figure it out, and it was not coming to me. And I'm like, I don't think that's right. And so I had already beat the main story before I figured out how to do that.
Oh, wow.
There are certainly places where it would have came in handy.
I think you are the reason that strategy guides might exist. First it was the charge shot in Mega Man. Didn't know that was a thing.
Yep.
Oh my god.
Well, and reminder that for the first game, for the first Mega Man, I didn't even know I was absorbing powers.
Oh,
geez. I also, in this game, didn't discover the rolling mechanic until after I had already beaten it. There's a mechanic where certain moons are hidden behind, like, there's the classic Mario game mechanic of you hit a music note and then it spawns a whole bunch of them and you have to touch all of them in a time limit.
Yeah.
And there's one of those where the notes are going down a hill and like the difficulty is supposed to be that it's a really narrow thing to walk on that's easy to fall off of. But I'm running down the thing and I'm like, something's not right here. The character is simply not fast enough. And I look around and I'm like, oh, I'm on a hill. Oh, fuck, I bet you can roll in this game. And I didn't even know it. And then I walked back to the top of the hill and I'm like, I bet you do it like this.
I think Josh and I can both agree that you were never allowed to touch a Kingdom Hearts game. You'll be like, man, I didn't even know you could attack enemies. I just been too busy fucking running away or letting Donald or Goofy fight him. Shit.
I mean, in this particular case, the silly thing is that, like, I don't know if they ever put it up in text or not somewhere and I missed it. But the thing is the whole game was beatable without those mechanics.
I'm pretty sure the game is designed so that you don't need to master the cap jump to clear it. However, a lot of this is something I love about Odyssey. A lot of the worlds are designed that, you know, you can almost break the worlds, and they're like, if you use that jump creatively, you can get to certain spots of the levels where you would think, oh, there's no way that the developers ever intended for me to be able to jump to wall kick up this ledge and then cap jump over to like the edge of this building, and you'll think, oh yeah, I probably just completely broke this scenario, and you'll walk around the corner and the developers will have put a pile of coins back there to reward you for figuring out how to get there. You know, it's not something that you're going to be upset that you missed if you can't get there. Yeah. But it's always just a little bonus of, and it's the people that designed the game are like, hey, you know, you're getting really good at this. Bet you didn't think we thought you could get here, but we totally did.
Also, I can't possibly praise that Nintendo level design enough in that everything in this game has a purpose. Like every little thing you could possibly notice going on. If you see a thing and you go, what's that about? Like it's there for a reason, even if you don't know it yet. And I just constantly felt rewarded for like the idea, Alex, is that it's an open world game in a sense. There's a number of worlds you go into, and then within that world, it's open, and there's something like 20 to 40 moons hidden within it. And you're free to find those moons generally in whatever order you want. And there's maybe a few that you need to hit for the story to progress, but then you just need to collect a certain number of moons to have enough power for your airship to get to the next land. But these worlds are actually really small and compressed, and the moons are just hidden really densely all over the place. And so you constantly have this sense of fulfillment in that, like, there's just so many of them in an actually pretty small area that you just, you know, you constantly feel like you're accomplishing something. You're, you know, probably a few minutes away from finding a moon.
Okay, I see what you mean.
And so like, I remember, like, early in the game, there's a mechanic in the game where a lot of moons will be hidden in, like, what'll happen is you'll go into a green pipe, and that will put you into a version of like 2D classic Mario, but you're like pressed into like the side of a mountain, like just in this flat world that's like painted on the side of a cliff or something. And you get a moon or two within this hidden area. There's usually one that's obvious at the exit, but then one hidden somewhere. And the first time I went into one of these, I saw the obvious moon, And then I saw a slight, tiny, little thin crack. Remind you, my character's paper thin. It's 2D. I saw the slightest crack in the wall a few feet over from the pipe. And for a second, I ignored it. And then I went, wait a minute, that was there for a reason. And I went back and, of course, the character slipped right through it into another area for another moon. And it's just constantly like that. You're just going to constantly see little things and go, there's a reason that's there.
Right.
Yep, there's little elements all over the world that will reward you for paying attention and trying to get as most out of the exploration as you can. And the one thing you didn't mention is almost my favorite part of those segments is the fact that every time you go into a pipe and come out 8-bit, the theme music for the world you're in also goes into an 8-bit rendition of whatever the current level theme is. I always thought that was a really fun touch that I liked a lot.
Yes, and the sound effects and the jingle for when you get the moon, and even like there's a ton of different costumes to buy and unlock in the game, and you'll end up with an 8-bit version of those costumes too. It's a really unique, really cool. Really neat, detailed experience.
Did you get the costume that makes him look like Super Mario 64, like 64-bit Mario?
I don't think I've bought that one. I think I noticed it in the store. I've been wearing his Waluigi clothes.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I couldn't resist putting on the 64-bit Mario suit when I first got it. It's just hilarious.
Yeah, considering how like shockingly detailed the rest of this game is for a Mario thing, like his hair has individual strands and his denim is actually denim and not a flat blue texture. Maybe I know Smash Bros. Like Ultimate has all these Nintendo characters being more detailed now than you're used to seeing them. But man, it was still strange, but like a good strange to see Mario in a world this detailed in terms of like texture resolution and model details. I hope they keep with that for at least these like main title 3D games. Anyway, I haven't played enough of these main title 3D Mario games to like try to rank it in comparison to the others, but this is at the very least still like a 9 out of 10. Like I haven't played Sunshine, so I don't know how people feel about that. I don't even know what's on the Wii U, so I don't know how people feel about that. But like, I don't know. It's still a pretty flawless 3D platformer to me. Not as good as Sunshine or Galaxy, though.
Ooh. I love the Galaxy games. I love them so much.
Yep. So step up,
Nintendo.
Think that Galaxy
Give us Galaxy
3.
Was my favorite 3D Mario game, and I actually think that Mario Odyssey has eclipsed it, though.
Ooh, okay. Well, maybe we'll end up spotlighting these eventually. I'm going to have to return to Galaxy and see if my opinion holds true at that point. But Nintendo, for now, we don't want any more innovating. We want Galaxy 3.
I would be very happy with Odyssey 2.
Jeez. All right, fair enough. It sounds like we're done here, guys.
Yeah,
I think so.
I'm going to go ignore some of the super secret stuff I have to do and go play Kingdom Hearts 3 instead.
All right. I'm going to go edit some more of these podcasts so that they can finally be online. If you're hearing this, I actually did that at some point.
Yeah. And if you're listening to this, you should go check out our YouTube if it's there.
If it's there. All right. Thanks for listening, guys. See you next time.
See you later. Take it easy.
Goodbye.